Let's start with the question. Replacing quest cards at turn 1 with the introduction of Ungoro. Hearthstone now has legendary spells known as quest. A quest is a spell card featuring a conditional reward. When played, quests are displayed above the controlling hero's portrait, similar to secrets. When the condition of the quest is met, the quest's effect is activated. When mulliganing. In addition, quest cards are automatically included in the player's mulligan as the leftmost card, although the player can choose to replace them. Since these quests can be replaced, I want to ask, under what circumstances is it favorable to replace the quest card in the starting hand? And how should the playstyle be altered accordingly if replaced? If it is possible to do so, it would be great if someone can list down the situations and playstyle for each of the classes' quests respectively. So how can we solve this? There are two possible answers. Answer 1. Note: I'm assuming you have tuned your deck and all of the cards in it for the purpose of completing the quests. The warrior quest can take a long time, sometimes going into turn 9+ depending on what kind of removal you need. Playing against a high aggro deck such as the rogue quest, you may want to hard mulligan for weapons or better stat minions to clear their early minions so they can't bounce them. The priest quest is built for the long game. You want to play tons of minions with death rattles, and the only good early ones are the 1/1 elemental or the 2 halves mistress. You can mulligan your quest if you have no decent early death rattles and you need to fight for early board position. You can also get some really good death rattle minions late game and complete your quest for an easy win if you can get board control against a control deck. Druid, you can safely do this against aggro decks for cheap removal spells in the early game. You need bigger minions with 5+ attack, which usually come around turn 3 at the earliest. If you need early game board presence, I suggest doing it so you don't get too far behind. Mage, you can if you are going for Exodia Mage. Mage quest takes a while and the only good 1-drops in most mage decks is Mana Wyrm. If you're going for quest completion, you'll need tempo and you don't want to cast Primordial on turn 2 and waste your turn if you're facing aggro. Paladin, you don't. You need small minions and start casting spells to buff them ASAP to get board presence and spell bounce back. Hunter, you don't. Works well in early game with 1-drop minions. No point in wasting the early game. Shaman, you don't. Murlocs are cheap and can go out in turn 1 with coin. Warlock, you don't. You want to be able to start discarding from the start of the game with your discard draw mechanics. Rogue, you don't. For the love of God, don't mulligan your quest. Answer 2. If facing off against a particularly aggressive deck, such as if you believe the opponent to be playing Pirate Warrior, it could potentially be beneficial to mulligan for taunts or specific hate tech cards rather than attempting to fulfill the quest. Most of the quests take several turns of potentially less than optimal plays to complete, and you probably won't get to the late game if you get run over by fast minions and burst damage. That being said, it can be very difficult to know whether your opponent is running an aggressive deck, and mulliganing your quest means you are unlikely to get it in time to complete it. Therefore, you should probably only mulligan your quest if you are confident that your opponent is playing an aggressive deck because you've either played them before or their selected hero only has one meta deck archetype. I hope these answers helped, and if they did, please drop a comment and subscribe.